DNA is a record of relationships. So you may be wondering, what kinds of relationships can I actually find from DNA? And in fact, we actually had a viewer that asked us this specific question. Can Ancestry DNA find siblings or half-siblings? Well, DNA can tell us who our siblings or half-siblings are, but this is more specific. This has to do with the Ancestry DNA test. When you take that, is it going to identify these siblings and half-siblings? I can start by pulling up my wife's match list, and you can see the very first match she has happens to be her full sibling, and that is her brother. They share roughly 2,300 centimorgans, and so without doing anything else, Ancestry identified her brother as her full sibling. So the first part of the question is answered. Can Ancestry find full siblings? Yes, Ancestry is going to find full siblings. Now you may be wondering, well, how do they do that? And that is a somewhat interesting question. So let's talk about full siblings and half siblings here. This is a part of a table from Leah Larkin's website that talks about how much DNA siblings and half siblings might share. Now you may be wondering, I don't see siblings or half siblings anywhere. Group A in DNA and what the DNA detectives have put together is a group that includes siblings, and really that's the only people in the group is siblings. And group B is a group that includes half siblings. I'll talk about that here just in a second. So think of group A when you see it as siblings and group B right now as half siblings. Well, we can see that from 3 different sources, DNA detectives, Ancestry DNA, and the shared CM project, that they have different values. Ancestry DNA and the shared CM project, those values are very similar, and DNA detectives is somewhat, although they go to a higher amount, that they have a little asterisk there. And that asterisk is important because they point out that DNA detectives uses 23andMe data, and 23andMe double counts the fully identical region. Full siblings share about 800 centimorgans that is fully identical. So if you take 3,900 centimorgans, subtract 800, you get 3,100 centimorgans, which is roughly about what Ancestry DNA and the shared CM project have. But in essence, when we're looking at siblings, group A, and half siblings, group B, what we can see is that there is either very little or just a small amount of overlap in that 2,100 to 2,300 range. Most of the range of what you would expect for either siblings or half siblings does not overlap. Now, the reason why Ancestry can identify full siblings right off the bat is simply because in this range, 2,100 to 3,100 centimorgans, other than that small little overlap on the short end, there's no other relationship that shares that amount of DNA. And so Ancestry can confidently say that this person is Devin's brother because they share 2,300 plus centimorgans. Now, when I'm talking about group B, we are talking not just about half siblings, but also aunts, uncles, nieces, and nephews, double first cousins, and grandparents, grandchildren. All of these people share the same range of DNA. And this is from the DNA detectives chart. So if we go over to one of Devin's aunts and we look, we see that their first matches are not siblings, even though they do have a sibling. It just says close family. In fact, here's close family to a first cousin. 1,879 centimorgans is shared. Now, in this case, 1,800 centimorgans is too small to be a full sibling. So it falls into this group B category. Ancestry just classifies this in the close family range, which includes half siblings, aunts, uncles, nieces and nephews, double first cousins, and grandparents, grandchildren. Now, you can go in yourself and you can actually identify this as a half sibling, in which case then that will show as a half sibling. But Ancestry by itself, just from that test, is not going to identify a half sibling. So what are the differences between full siblings and half siblings when we start to go down and look at it on the chromosomes? Well, here is an example of those first couple that were siblings, my wife and her brother. You can see that they share, and this is all from 23andMe, they share 2,400 centimorgans, which are half identical, 52 segments, and 736 centimorgans, which are completely identical in 25 segments. Now, visually, the lighter purple is the half, and the darker purple is the fully identical. One of the things that you'll notice is that the fully identical always happens within this half identical, unless you're really at the ends of the chromosomes. But half siblings, they only share one parent. So they don't actually have any fully identical DNA. They only have half identical DNA. So this is my wife's two aunts that are half siblings. They share roughly 2,000 centimorgans on 23andMe, 47 segments. Now the interesting thing here is if we look at the number of segments, it's roughly the same because they are siblings. All of those fully identical segments are contained within any one of the half identical segments. So it really doesn't add any new number of segments. So this is one of the things that I'm actually thinking about doing some more research on, is seeing from half siblings and full siblings how many segments they share, and seeing whether or not that actually is just a overlap of really the same number of overall segments on average, or if there's a little bit of a difference between it. Roughly from all the examples that I've seen from my known family, it looks like it is roughly about the same between whether it's half siblings or full siblings. The difference being full siblings also have some segments within those half segments that are fully identical. So we can answer the question about Ancestry DNA. Yes, Ancestry DNA is going to identify full siblings because the DNA signature of full siblings is unique. No other relationship has that, in that they share between about 2,300 and 3,000 centimorgans, and they have these fully identical regions within their DNA. Ancestry will not identify half siblings as half siblings. They will put them in close family because there's some other relationships that they could be. However, you may be able to eliminate those relationships based on the information that you know, and you can then label that as a half sibling. Half siblings share about 1,300 to 2,100, 2,200 centimorgans, which for the most part is less than what full siblings share, and they don't have any fully identical regions. Now, if you would like to see a video about the differences in relationships and how that looks on DNA, you can watch this video up here. But if you'd like to learn something more about DNA, then watch this video down below. Be sure to smash that like button if you are happy that the Aggies beat Alabama.